Guys, I'm going to explain how to do the Individual Guided Video Assessment 1B. You can find this assignment under the Quizzes tab or the Assignments tab on Canvas. The instructions for this assignment is to open up the Web Study Guide on the HK Propel website in a separate browser. For this assignment, you will go to Chapter 3, Activity 3.2, and you will evaluate jumpers 1, 5, and 6. For this tutorial, we will evaluate jumpers 2 and 7, so that you know how to approach evaluating each of the jumpers. So first, go on to the HK Propel website and log on. You will see links to the chapters in the Lifespan Motor Development textbook. You'll go to Chapter 3, click on Lab Activity 3.2, click the Next button, and on the right side, you will see videos of different jumpers. For Individual Guided Video Assessment 1B, you're going to focus on just the jumpers. For this assessment, you're going to evaluate 3 different jumpers, 1, 5, and 6, with respect to the movements of the legs, trunk, and arms to determine who is the least proficient and who is the most proficient jumper. You're going to think about the different constraints or factors that influence the performance of these skills. Then you're going to have to think about what types of specific activities would help to improve the jumping for the least proficient jumper. So if you see a child that's not very proficient with jumping, don't just say practice jumping. There could be something specific about the leg movements, trunk, or arm movements that they could practice. So for example, if the person does not use his or her arms while jumping, they could practice some activities to help them swing their arms to increase momentum and balance while jumping. Let's go through and analyze Subject 2 together. I'm going to start by making the video as big as possible, and we're going to start focusing on the slow motion. You're going to have to watch the jumper a couple times. Let's start by focusing on her leg movement. Here we see that she has mostly knee flexion and hip flexion, and you can see that her heels are coming up off the ground in anticipation of the start of the jump. She takes off with 2 feet, she lands with 2 feet with a little bit of flexion and in her hips and in her knees. Now let's watch this again and focus on her trunk. When she starts the movement, she has a lot of forward flexion in her trunk. In the middle of the movement, her trunk has extended back so she's straight, and she doesn't show a lot of forward flexion at the end of the jump. Let's watch again, and this time we'll focus on her arms. At the beginning of the movement, she brings her arms back behind her trunk. She lifts her arms forwards, but not all the way overhead. And when she lands, her arms come back behind her trunk again. Overall, I'd rate this child as having relatively good or moderate proficiency. Now let's watch another jumper, jumper 7. Let's make this as big as possible so we can watch it clearly. And let's focus on the slow motion part of the video. Let's start first with her leg movement. At the start of the jump, you can see that she has knee flexion and hip flexion. At takeoff, she has full extension of her hip, knee, and ankles. And she starts off landing 2 feet, but she doesn't have enough stability to land cleanly. Let's watch this again with respect to her trunk. At the beginning of the movement, she bends her body forwards into forward flexion. She extends her body straight, so her back is straight. And she has a lot of trunk forward flexion at landing. Let's watch this again with respect to her arms. She uses her arms quite a bit to generate momentum. She brings her arms forward and then back behind her body. This is similar to what we saw with the other jumper. But this time, her arms come all the way overhead, and at landing, her arms thrust down behind her back again. Although these two children have very different performance, Subject 2 is slightly more proficient for the leg movements, whereas Subject 7 is slightly more proficient for the trunk and knee extension movements, but not great on her landing. For this assignment, you will evaluate 3 different jumpers, number 1, 5, and 6, in the same way. It's best to watch each of the performers, take careful notes, and watch the videos a couple times with a specific focus on the leg movements first, then the trunk, and then the arms. Once you have good notes, you can have the videos up on one side of your screen and you can begin your quiz. You'll have 30 minutes to complete the quiz. Carefully rate which jumper jumps the best, from the least proficient to the most proficient. Consider the factors that might have influenced how well each of these jumpers can jump. Then take the least proficient jumper and think of specific activities that might help to improve their jumping. Please let us know if you have any questions or difficulties with this assignment.